I'm Ariana Prescott, 32 years old, and CEO of Prescott Luxury Hotels. Ironic that I built an empire ensuring people always have beautiful places to stay when my own parents once told me there was no room for me at Christmas. I worked my way from night clerk to owning 15 five-star properties worldwide. My family barely acknowledged my success until they desperately needed rooms for my brother's high-profile wedding. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on my family this Christmas, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated you. Growing up in Boston as a Prescott meant living in the shadow of expectations. Our brick colonial in the suburbs projected middle-class stability, but inside those walls the family dynamic was anything but balanced. My parents, Thomas and Jennifer Prescott, had a clear favorite from the day my brother Jackson was born. He was 3 years older, athletic, and naturally charming in ways that made my more analytical personality seem less impressive by comparison. Dad worked as a high school principal, and Mom taught English at the same school. They were respected educators who valued academic achievement, but somehow my straight A's never earned the same praise as Jackson's B+ average. Jackson tries so hard, they'd say. School just comes too easily to you, Ariana. My entrepreneurial streak emerged early. At 8, I set up a lemonade stand that turned into a weekend fixture in our neighborhood. By 10, I was organizing a small troupe of neighborhood kids to run multiple stands across several blocks, taking a percentage of everyone's profits. Instead of recognizing my budding business acumen, my parents called it cute and suggested I focus more on normal kid stuff. By 13, I had established a thriving babysitting service, coordinating jobs for myself and 5 other teens. I created business cards, set standard rates, and kept meticulous records. When I proudly showed my father my earnings journal, he patted my head and said, "That's a sweet little project, but don't get too caught up in it. College applications will care more about your extracurricular activities." The true pain of their dismissal hit hardest during my junior year of high school. I had researched business schools extensively and knew exactly where I wanted to apply. When application season arrived, my parents sat down with Jackson, by then a struggling sophomore at a state college, and spent hours helping him transfer to a better school. They paid for tutoring, campus visits, and application fees without hesitation. When I asked for the same support, my mother sighed. "Ariana, you know we're stretched thin with Jackson's situation right now. Can't you just apply to state? You're smart enough to succeed anywhere." That night, I made a silent promise to myself I would get into a top business school without their help. I picked up more babysitting jobs, started tutoring younger students in math, and even took a weekend position at the local cafe. Every dollar went into my college fund. I stayed up late researching scholarships, writing essays, and filling out applications after finishing homework. The acceptance letter from Wharton came with a partial scholarship, but not enough to cover everything. My parents' reaction was lukewarm. "That's going to be very expensive," my father warned. "We've already committed to helping Jackson with his transfer. No congratulations, no pride, just practical concerns that somehow never applied to my brother." I took out loans and worked 3 jobs to make it happen. Campus cafe in the mornings, library assistant in the afternoons, and weekend shifts at a hotel front desk. That hotel job changed everything. I fell in love with the hospitality industry, the blend of business strategy, customer service, and creating memorable experiences aligned perfectly with my skills. The first Christmas of my sophomore year, I called home to confirm my travel plans. Mom hesitated on the phone. "About Christmas, honey. We're having your aunt and uncle and all the cousins stay with us this year. There's just not enough room for everyone." "I can sleep on the couch," I offered immediately. "Well, we're using the living room for Grandma since she can't do stairs anymore. Maybe next year would be better." He swallowed hard. "Sure, Mom. No problem." 2 days later, scrolling through Instagram, I saw photos of our house decorated for Christmas. There was Jackson smiling with his arm around his new girlfriend. They were standing in front of the Christmas tree in our living room. The same living room that supposedly had Grandma in it, the same house that supposedly had no room for me. I spent Christmas alone in my off-campus apartment, working double shifts at the hotel because I volunteered to cover for coworkers with families. The manager noticed and took me under his wing, showing me aspects of hotel operations I'd never seen from the front desk. By the time everyone returned from break, I had been promoted to assistant front office manager, working weekends and evenings around my class schedule. That Christmas rejection cut deep, but it also planted a seed. If I couldn't count on having a place in my family's home, I would build spaces where others would always feel welcome. I threw myself into learning everything about hotels, from housekeeping logistics to revenue management. My grades remained excellent, but my passion was clear. I was going to succeed in hospitality with or without my family's support. After graduation, I accepted an entry-level management position at the Regal, a struggling boutique hotel in Philadelphia. The pay was lower than other offers, but it came with something more valuable: direct mentorship from the regional director Eleanor Matthews, a 60-something hotel industry legend who had broken glass ceilings since the first and 200 and a legend for 60-something 70s. Eleanor saw something in me that reminded her of herself. Hotel management isn't just about clean rooms and polite service, she told me during our first one-on-one meeting. It's about creating memories. People remember how you made them feel long after they forget what thread count was on the sheets. Under Eleanor's guidance, I worked every department in that hotel. I folded towels with housekeeping at 5 in the morning. I helped the maintenance team unclog toilets and fix air conditioning units. I served drinks alongside bartenders during busy convention weekends. I shadowed the revenue manager, learning the delicate science of pricing rooms to maximize occupancy and profit. Within a year, the Regal's occupancy increased by 23%. Within 2, it was the highest-rated boutique hotel in the city. Eleanor watched my progress with pride, occasionally dropping hints about my potential. "You know," she said over coffee one morning, "this place is wasted on the current ownership group. They have no vision. They barely approved the lobby renovation that saved this property." She slid a folder across the table. "A friend of mine is putting together an investment group for distressed hotel properties. They're looking for someone with operational expertise to join them." Inside was an invitation to a meeting and a note. "Eleanor says you're the future of hospitality. We'd like to meet the future." That meeting changed everything. The investment group was impressed with my detailed analysis of the Regal's turnaround and my vision for similar properties. They offered me a small equity stake and operational control of their first acquisition, a once grand hotel in Baltimore that had fallen into disrepair. I called my parents to share the news. Dad answered, distracted by a football game in the background. "That's nice, honey. Sounds risky, though. Hotels are expensive to run. Maybe you should stick with a steady paycheck for a few more years." His dismissal only fueled my determination. I threw myself into the Baltimore project, living on site during the renovation, sleeping on an air mattress in what would eventually become the presidential suite. 18-hour days for 6 months straight. When we reopened, I named it the Prescott. Not for my family, but for myself. It was my vision, my execution, my success. The irony that I was building my own Prescott legacy while my parents continued to dismiss my career wasn't lost on me. The Baltimore Prescott exceeded all financial projections within its first quarter. The investment group immediately greenlit a second project, then a third. Within 4 years, we had 5 properties along the eastern seaboard, each more successful than the last. Year 5 brought a pivotal moment. Eleanor was retiring and recommended me to take over her portfolio of luxury properties across the country. The investment would be significant, requiring new partners and substantial bank financing. "You're ready," Eleanor assured me. "I wouldn't trust anyone else with my life's work." I spent weeks preparing the perfect pitch, securing commitments from investors who believed in my vision and negotiating with banks for favorable terms. At 30, I became the CEO of what was now officially Prescott Luxury Hotels, with 10 properties across the United States. Industry recognition followed. Hospitality Executive of the Year, Forbes 30 Under 30. Cover features in travel and business magazines. With each achievement, I sent clippings to my parents' home address. No response. The few times we spoke, usually around holidays or birthdays, they asked general questions about work as though I had a regular job, not as though I was running a nationally recognized hotel brand that bore our family name. "Are you still at that hotel?" my mother asked during our brief call on my 31st birthday. "Yes, Mom. Still in hotels," I answered, not bothering to correct her. "Well, as long as you're happy, dear. Jackson just made vice president at his firm. We're so proud." By year 8, Prescott Luxury Hotels had grown to 15 properties spanning 3 countries. Our newest acquisition, the prestigious Harrington Hotel chain with its 7 landmark properties, had made national business news. The Harrington deal doubled our portfolio overnight and established Prescott as a major player in the global luxury hotel market. Through it all, I built my own family of sorts. My executive team had been with me from nearly the beginning. My assistant Madeline had started as a front desk agent at the Baltimore property and had grown into my right-hand confidant and friend. My relationship with James, a restaurant consultant I'd hired for our Chicago property, had blossomed into a supportive partnership. He understood my drive and the wounds that fueled it. The day the Harrington acquisition closed, I allowed myself a rare moment of reflection. Standing in the penthouse suite of our flagship New York property overlooking Central Park, I thought about the journey from that lonely Christmas in my college apartment to creating spaces that welcomed thousands of guests every night. I had built something meaningful, something lasting. My phone rang, interrupting the moment. The number displayed was one I rarely saw anymore, my mother's cell phone. I almost let it go to voicemail as I often did, but something compelled me to answer. "Hello," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Ariana, it's Mom. Do you have a minute? I need to ask you something important." "Ariana, sweetie, how are you?" My mother's voice had that forced cheerfulness I recognized from childhood, the tone that meant she wanted something. "I'm fine, Mom. Busy with work. How are you and Dad?" I kept my response, intentionally vague, a habit developed over years of them showing minimal interest in my actual life. "Oh, we're just wonderful, so much going on. That's actually why I'm calling." She paused as if waiting for me to ask, so I obliged. "What's happening?" "Well, the most exciting news. Your brother Jackson is getting married to Sophia Livingston. Can you believe it? Senator Livingston's daughter. They met at a charity gala last spring. It's been a whirlwind romance." I vaguely recognized the senator's name, a prominent politician from a wealthy New England family. "That's great news. Congratulations to Jackson." "We're absolutely thrilled. The wedding is set for Christmas week in New York City. The Livingstons insisted on New York. Apparently, Sophia always dreamed of a Manhattan Christmas wedding." Something in my stomach tightened. I already sensed where this was going. "That sounds lovely," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Yes, well, here's the thing. The Livingstons have invited quite a large contingent. Family political connections, you know how it is. And of course, all our extended family wants to come too. It's going to be the event of the season. I'm sure it will be beautiful." I walked to the window of my office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were coming to my city, probably unaware that I owned some of its most prominent buildings. "We're having such trouble with accommodations, though. Everything decent in Manhattan is booked solid for Christmas week. Absolutely everything. The Livingstons managed to secure rooms at the plaza for their immediate family, but the rest of us are struggling." I waited, letting her continue rather than offering the obvious solution. Then I remembered, "You work at that hotel chain, right? The one with the property in New York. What was it called again, Preston?" "Something like that." 8 years building the Prescott name into a global luxury brand, and my own mother couldn't remember it. The sting was familiar, but no less sharp. "Prescott," I corrected her. "Prescott Luxury Hotels." "Yes, that's it. Anyway, I thought perhaps you could help us get rooms. We need at least 15, for your father and me, Uncle Robert and Aunt Diane, all the cousins, and a few close friends who are in the wedding party. I know it's a lot to ask, but family discount and all that, I'm sure your manager would understand." My manager. She thought I reported to someone. 8 years of sending newspaper clippings, magazine features, and press releases to their house. 8 years of them apparently not reading any of it, or perhaps thinking it was all exaggeration. I sat down at my desk, suddenly needing the support of my chair. You need 15 rooms at the Prescott, New York for Christmas week. At least 15. Possibly more as the RSVPs continue to come in. Nothing fancy necessary. Well, I mean, nice enough for the occasion, but we understand if it can't be the premium rooms since it's a busy season. When exactly are the dates? I asked, pulling up our reservation system on my computer. I could see we were indeed almost at capacity with just the reserve block of rooms I personally held back for emergencies and VIPs. She rattled off the dates, and I noted that they spanned Christmas Eve through New Year's, our absolute peak period, where rooms typically went for over $1,000 per night. And Jackson and Sophia will be staying at the plaza with her family, I confirmed. Yes, the senator insisted. Though between us, I think your hotel is probably just as nice. I looked at the website. Very impressive what they've done with the place. What I've done with the place, I thought but didn't say. Let me see what I can do, I replied, my mind already calculating the various ways I could handle this situation. Oh, wonderful. We were so worried. Everything in the city is either booked or astronomically priced. All the luxury hotels are fully booked according to all the booking sites. We'd be absolutely grateful for any help. The conversation continued with my mother chattering about wedding details, never once asking about my life, or even seeming to register that securing 15 luxury hotel rooms during the busiest week of the year in Manhattan was an extraordinary request. She spoke as if I were a hotel clerk who might be able to pull some strings, not the person whose signature was on every employee's paycheck. After promising to call her back with confirmation, I ended the call and immediately buzzed Madeline into my office. Everything okay? She asked, noting my expression. After 7 years working together, she could read my moods better than anyone. My family needs rooms for Christmas week. From my brother's wedding to a senator's daughter. Madeline raised an eyebrow. The same family that doesn't have room for you at Christmas. The very same. I swiveled my monitor toward her, showing the reservation system. They need 15 rooms. Mother says, nothing fancy necessary, but God forbid they get anything less than our best. Do they know? Madeline asked quietly. That I'm not just a manager, that I own the entire chain, that the Prescott name isn't coincidental. I shook my head. Apparently not. 8 years of sending press clippings home, and they've either never read them or never believed them. Madeline leaned against the desk. What do you want to do? I stared at the blinking cursor on the screen. I could be magnanimous, give them the rooms, reveal my success, finally receive the recognition I'd been denied. Or I could refuse. Cite the genuine lack of availability, let them scramble like any other customers who waited until the last minute to book Christmas in New York. Book them, I decided. The Madison Avenue side floors 15 through 17. Flag the reservation with my override code. And will you tell them about your position? I thought about it for a long moment. No, not yet. Let's see how this plays out. After Madeline left, I called James. He listened patiently as I recounted the conversation with my mother. Are you okay? He asked when I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to be the bigger person here, to show them I've succeeded despite their lack of faith in me. Another part wants them to finally acknowledge how wrong they were about me. You don't need their validation, James reminded me gently. You know what you've built. I know. But it still hurts, he finished for me. That's okay, Ari. You're allowed to want recognition from your parents. Everyone does. I looked at the family photo on my desk. Not my parents and brother, but the team that had built Prescott Hotels together. The family I had chosen. I think I need to see their faces when they realize the truth. Is that petty? It's human, James assured me. Just remember that whatever happens, whatever they say or don't say, it doesn't change who you are or what you've accomplished. As I hung up, I made my decision. I would be there when they checked in. After all these years of absence and dismissal, I wanted to see firsthand the moment when they finally understood who their daughter had become. The following week was a flurry of activity preparing for my family's arrival. I personally walked through each of the 15 rooms I'd allocated to them, inspecting every detail. The Madison Avenue facing rooms were among our most beautiful, with their classic New York views and recently renovated interiors. "Miss Prescott, is there anything special you'd like done for these rooms?" asked Carlos, our head of housekeeping, who rarely saw me so involved in specific guest accommodations. I paused, considering. Yes. Fresh flowers daily, white lilies for my parents' suite. They were always my mother's favorite, though she may not realize I remember. Arrange welcome baskets with local artisanal products. And champagne on ice for their arrival. Carlos looked surprised. "So, VIP treatment?" "Absolute VIP treatment," I confirmed. "But I want you to know something. These guests are my family. They don't really know what I do. They think I'm just a manager here." Carlos's eyes widened slightly, but his professional demeanor never faltered. "I understand, Miss Prescott. We'll make them feel special without revealing anything you don't want revealed." "Thank you, Carlos." I held a special briefing with the front desk staff, concierge team, and management. Without sharing too many personal details, I explained that the incoming Prescott party was related to me but weren't aware of my position in the company. "They'll be treated with our standard 5-star service, but please direct any special requests or issues to me personally," I instructed, "and if they ask about me, simply say that Miss Prescott is available to meet with them personally." As the day of their arrival approached, my anxiety grew. I found myself recalling past Christmases, the year I was told there wasn't room, the subsequent years when invitations were half-hearted at best, the holidays spent with Eleanor and her family instead, and more recently, celebrations with James and friends who truly valued my presence. The night before their scheduled arrival, I couldn't sleep. I paced the penthouse of the hotel, my permanent residence when in New York. James found me at 3 a.m, staring out at the city lights. "Second thoughts?" he asked, handing me a cup of herbal tea. "Many thoughts," I corrected him. "I keep wavering between wanting to be gracious and wanting to make a point." James leaned against the window beside me. "What would actually make you feel better in the long run?" I considered the question seriously. I don't want to humiliate them, especially not in front of the senator's family. That wouldn't be fair to Jackson. But I do want them to recognize me, to see me. Really see me for once. "Then that's your answer," James said simply. "Be yourself. The accomplished, gracious, brilliant hotel executive you are every day. No games, no pettiness, just the truth they've been too blind to see." I nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll meet them as myself, the CEO of Prescott Luxury Hotels. How they respond is up to them." The next morning, I dressed with particular care in a tailored navy suit that projected confident professionalism. I had Madeline clear my schedule for the arrival window when my parents were expected. At precisely 2 o'clock, I positioned myself near the reception desk, pretending to review documents while actually watching the revolving front doors. And then they were there. My father carrying a briefcase that had seen better days, my mother clutching her prized Burberry handbag, a splurge from years ago that she still mentioned whenever luxury goods came up. They looked older, of course. Dad's hair was completely silver now, and Mom had new lines around her eyes. But they carried themselves with the same middle-class pride I remembered walking into the opulent lobby of my flagship hotel, with wide eyes barely concealed behind a veneer of nonchalance. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Welcome to the Prescott," I said, extending my hand formally. "I'm Ariana Prescott." Mom's jaw literally dropped. Dad blinked rapidly, taking in my presence, my professional attire, the deference with which the staff nearby treated me. Ariana Mom recovered first, moving in for a hug that felt more performative than genuine. "What a wonderful surprise. We had no idea you'd be here to greet us personally." Dad shook my hand awkwardly. "You look professional. They let you dress like that for work." The comment stung. still so dismissive, still assuming I occupied some minor role, but I maintained my composure. "Let's get you checked in," I said, motioning to the VIP reception area. "I've arranged for your entire party to have our Madison Avenue suites. They're some of our finest accommodations." "Oh, that's very generous," Mom said, looking impressed, despite herself. "Your manager approved that. We were expecting something much more basic." I caught Madeline's eye across the lobby. She gave me an encouraging nod. "Let's just say I have some influence here," I replied, leading them to the private elevator. "When is everyone else arriving?" Throughout the afternoon, Dad answered, still looking somewhat puzzled by my presence. "Your Aunt Diane and Uncle Robert should be here any minute. The others are coming in on later flights." As if on cue, the revolving doors spun again, and more family members appeared. Relatives I hadn't seen in years, some carrying garment bags that presumably held wedding attire. For the next hour, I greeted family members, escorted them to their rooms, and fielded expressions of surprise at my presence. No one quite asked directly about my role, seeming to assume I'd simply arranged to be present as a courtesy because I worked there. Their casual dismissal of what that might entail was both amusing and painful. The real moment came when the elevator doors opened onto the 15th floor, and I led my parents into their corner suite. Mom audibly gasped at the panoramic views, the elegant furnishings, the bottle of Dom Perignon chilling in an ice bucket. This must be one of your very best rooms?" she said, turning slowly to take it all in. "It is," I acknowledged. "Only the best for family." Dad examined the welcome basket, picking up the handwritten card. "Welcome to the Prescott Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Prescott. We hope you enjoy your stay. This is quite something, Ariana." I watched them explore the suite, noting the lily arrangements, Mom touching the high-thread count sheets, with appreciation, Dad examining the state-of-the-art electronics. "You must have gone to a lot of trouble," Mom said finally. "We appreciate it, but, well, we don't want you getting in trouble with your superiors for giving away luxury suites at Christmas rates." The moment stretched between us. I could correct her now, tell her the truth. But something held me back. A lifetime of dismissals of being overlooked made me want to wait for a more definitive moment. "Don't worry about that," I said instead. "Everything is taken care of. Why don't you get settled in? There's a welcome reception for all wedding guests in the grand ballroom at 7. I'll see you there." As I turned to leave, Mom called after me. "Oh, Ariana, I meant to ask. We were thinking of having a small family dinner tomorrow night, just immediate family and the Livingstons. Do you think your hotel restaurant could accommodate us?" The concierge at the plaza said everywhere is booked solid. I paused at the door. "I'll speak with the executive chef personally. I'm sure we can arrange something suitable." "Wonderful," Mom beamed, already turning to Dad. "I told you Ariana would be able to pull some strings." I closed the door behind me, leaned against the wall, and took a deep breath. The setup was complete. Now I just had to wait for the perfect moment for the truth to be revealed. The grand ballroom of the Prescott, New York, was transformed for the evening's welcome reception. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over meticulously arranged tables, each adorned with winter white floral centerpieces. A string quartet played softly in the corner, and uniformed staff circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. I stood near the entrance greeting guests as they arrived. I'd changed into an evening gown, sophisticated but not flashy, professional yet elegant. James stood by my side, his calm presence grounding me through what promised to be an emotionally charged evening. "You look like the hotel owner you are," he whispered, squeezing my hand. "Remember that." When my parents entered, they'd clearly dressed to impress. Mom wore a designer dress that I suspected was new for the occasion, and Dad had on a tuxedo that looked recently tailored. They faltered slightly upon seeing me at the entrance, clearly not expecting me to be hosting. Ariana, Mom said, recovering quickly. "This is quite a lovely setup. Your hotel does beautiful work." Before I could respond, the elevator doors opened again, and Jackson appeared with a striking brunette on his arm, Sophia Livingston presumably, followed by an older couple who carried themselves with the unmistakable confidence of wealth and influence. Senator Livingston and his wife had arrived. Mom, Dad, Jackson called, approaching with a genuine smile. Unlike my parents, his surprise at seeing me seemed coupled with actual pleasure. Ariana, I had no idea you'd be here. He engulfed me in a hug that felt surprisingly sincere. Wouldn't miss it, I replied, returning his embrace. Whatever complicated feelings I had about my family, Jackson had been a child himself when our parents played favorites. He'd never actively participated in my exclusion. Sophia, this is my sister Ariana Jackson, said, turning to his fiancée. Ariana, meet Sophia. Sophia was elegantly beautiful with intelligent eyes that assessed me with interest. I've heard so much about you, she said, extending her hand. Jackson speaks very highly of his successful sister. That surprised me. I hadn't realized Jackson had been following my career at all. Senator and Mrs. Livingston, my mother interjected, clearly eager to make the introduction. This is our daughter Ariana. She works here at the hotel and has been so helpful in arranging accommodations for our family. I saw the flicker of confusion in the senator's eyes as he tried to reconcile the elegant woman before him with the description of a hotel employee doing her family a favor. Wonderful to meet you, the senator said, shaking my hand. This is certainly an impressive property. Thank you, I replied, simply not correcting my mother's characterization yet. Please everyone enjoy the reception. Dinner will be served at 8. The evening progressed with the strange surreality of watching my extended family and the Livingstons move through the space I had designed, enjoying the hospitality I had crafted, all while most remained oblivious to my true connection to it all. I circulated through the room, greeting guests, ensuring everything ran smoothly, occasionally catching confused glances as people tried to figure out exactly what my role was. Around 9 o'clock, I found myself near the bar next to my mother, who was on her second glass of champagne and looking flushed with excitement. Ariana, I must say you've done very well for yourself here, she said, gesturing around the room. This position must be quite a step up from where you started. And to think we worried about you choosing hospitality instead of a more traditional career? I took a measured sip of my water. It's been a rewarding path. Your father and I were just telling the Livingstons how proud we are of you working your way up in such a prestigious hotel, her voice lowered conspiratorially. Though between us, they were a bit confused about your role here. I think they expected the hotel manager to be, well, older. The irony was almost painful. Did you clarify things for them? I explained that while you might not be the top manager, you clearly have some influence. Finding us rooms when all luxury hotels are fully booked, she looked smug as though she had defended my honor by minimizing my achievement. The senator was quite impressed by that. Something in me snapped, not dramatically, not loudly, but definitively, like a thread pulled too tight for too long finally giving way. Mom, I said calmly, I think there's something you should know. But she wasn't listening, her attention caught by something across the room. Oh, the senator is waving us over. He wants to discuss the seating arrangements for the ceremony. Come along, Ariana. I followed her to where Senator Livingston stood with my father and the Livingstons' wedding planner, a clipboard-wielding woman with an earpiece. Ah, the woman of the hour, the senator boomed as I approached. Your mother was just telling us how fortunate we are that you work at this magnificent hotel. Getting 15 rooms during Christmas week in Manhattan. That's pulling off a minor miracle. My mother preened. All luxury hotels are fully booked, she gloated to the wedding planner, but family connections made the difference. Something about her smug satisfaction, taking credit for my success while simultaneously diminishing it, was the final straw. I caught Madeline's eye across the room and gave her a subtle nod. She immediately approached, tablet in hand. Excuse me, I said politely to the group. There's a small matter I need to address. I turned to Madeline, speaking in a clear voice that carried to those nearby. Madeline, please cancel the Prescott family's presidential suite access for tomorrow's private tour. I believe they'll be too busy with wedding preparations to appreciate it properly. Dad's face went pale as the implications of my words, and Madeline's deference began to sink in. Ariana, he said slowly, what exactly is your position here? The senator looked between us, confusion evident. I assumed. Are you not the manager? Not exactly, I replied, meeting his gaze directly. I'm the founder and CEO of Prescott Luxury Hotels, all 15 properties worldwide, including the 7 Harrington properties we acquired last year. A stunned silence fell over our small circle, broken only by the sound of my mother's champagne glass nearly slipping from her fingers. You own this hotel? She stammered. The entire chain. Yes, I said simply. I named it after myself. Prescott Luxury Hotels. I've sent you press clippings for years. The senator recovered first, his political instincts kicking in. Well, this is remarkable. Jackson mentioned his sister was successful in hospitality, but he didn't specify you were the Prescott of Prescott Hotels. My brother appeared at that moment, taking in the tableau of shocked faces. What did I miss? Your sister, the senator said, clapping him on the shoulder, has just revealed she's not merely employed by this magnificent establishment, she owns the entire international chain. Jackson's face broke into a genuine smile. Well, yeah. Didn't everyone know that Ariana's been featured in Forbes twice? She's kind of a big deal. The revelation that Jackson had known all along, had apparently been proud of me, had told his future wife about my success, was almost as shocking as everything else. My father cleared his throat. Of course we knew Ariana was doing well, he said weakly. We just didn't realize the scope of her success. 15 luxury properties across 3 countries Madeline supplied helpfully, voted Hotelier of the Year last year. The Harrington acquisition was the largest hospitality merger of the decade. Mom's face cycled through emotions, shock, embarrassment, and finally an attempt at pride. Well, our Ariana, always the ambitious one. The senator, ever the diplomat, raised his glass. I believe this calls for a toast to Ariana Prescott, whose extraordinary success makes this wedding celebration all the more special. Glasses raised around me, but all I could focus on was the look on my parents' faces, the dawning realization that the daughter they'd dismissed, excluded, and underestimated now controlled the very roof over their heads. It wasn't the vindication I'd imagined all these years. It felt hollow seeing them scramble to rewrite history in real time, to position themselves as proud parents who had believed in me all along. But it was a reckoning long overdue, a truth finally acknowledged. As the toast concluded and conversations resumed, I excused myself, needing a moment alone. I found refuge in my office, 1 floor below, sitting at my desk, surrounded by the artifacts of the life I'd built, awards, photographs of hotel openings, the framed first dollar from the Baltimore property. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. It was Jackson. Hey, he said, closing the door behind him. That was quite a moment up there. I gestured for him to sit. You knew all this time. He nodded, looking sheepish. Since your second property opened, I saw an article in Business Weekly with your picture. I've followed your career ever since, though I figured you wouldn't want to hear from me since we were never close. Why didn't you tell them? I asked, genuinely curious. Jackson sighed. I did, sort of. Showed them articles mentioned your success. I think they couldn't reconcile their image of their little girl with the powerful executive you became. It was easier to think you had a nice job at a hotel chain than to admit they'd completely misjudged you. I absorbed this feeling, the complex emotions of the evening settle into something more nuanced than simple anger or vindication. I'm sorry, Jackson continued, for all of it, for not standing up for you more when we were kids, for benefiting from their favoritism. You deserved better. For the first time that evening I felt tears threaten, not from my parents' recognition but from the unexpected validation from my brother. Thank you for saying that I managed. Jackson stood, looking around the impressive office. For what it's worth, I'm incredibly proud to be your brother. What you've built is extraordinary, Ariana. Truly extraordinary. As he left, I realized the confrontation I'd anticipated for so long had happened, but the aftermath was nothing like I'd imagined. There was no satisfaction in seeing my parents scramble, no joy in their embarrassment. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness, as if a weight I'd carried for years had suddenly disappeared, leaving me uncertain of my balance without it. The recognition I'd craved for so long had finally come. Now I had to decide what to do with it. The morning after the revelation, I woke in my penthouse feeling strangely hollow. The vindication I'd imagined for so long had come, but it hadn't brought the satisfaction I'd expected. I pulled on my robe and stepped onto the terrace, watching the winter sun rise over Central Park, turning the snow-dusted trees into a glittering wonderland. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "How are you feeling this morning? Should I come over?" I appreciated his concern but needed space to process. "I'm okay. Meeting with Chef Antoine at 10. Talk later." The meeting with our executive chef had been scheduled weeks ago to finalize the holiday menus, but now took on new significance with my family and residents. I found Chef Antoine in the main kitchen, already surrounded by sample dishes for Christmas Eve dinner. "Miss Prescott," he greeted me, wiping his hands on his apron. "I heard about last night's excitement. Your family must be very proud." I managed a small smile. "It's complicated, Antoine." His kind eyes crinkled with understanding. Family usually is. "Now, about this family dinner tonight, I've prepared several options." I appreciated his discretion in not prying further. We spent an hour discussing menus, and I found the familiar rhythm of work centering me. This was my world, making decisions, creating experiences, controlling the details. This was what I had built. As I left the kitchen, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I briefly considered letting it go to voicemail but decided to face whatever came next. "Hello, Mother." "Ariana." Her voice was overly bright. "Your father and I were wondering if you'd join us for breakfast. We're in the restaurant downstairs. The Belgian waffles are divine." The casual normalcy of the invitation, as if last night hadn't happened, was jarring. "I've already eaten, but thank you." "Oh." A pause. "Well, perhaps you could show us around your hotel then. We'd love to see it through your eyes." I closed my own eyes, briefly steadying myself. "I have meetings all morning, perhaps this afternoon." I hesitated, then added, "The private dinner is still scheduled for 7 tonight in the Maple Room. I've worked with Chef Antoine on a special menu." "Wonderful, the Livingstons are so impressed with everything. Your father was just telling Senator Livingston about how we always encouraged your interest in business, how we knew you were special from the start." The revisionist history was starting already. "Was that before or after you told me there wasn't room for me at Christmas during college?" The line went silent for a beat too long. "Ariana, that was a misunderstanding. We were just so crowded that year, and..." I saw the pictures of Jackson and his girlfriend in the living room, Mom. "The same living room you said was being used for Grandma." Another pause. "That was a very long time ago. Surely you don't still hold a grudge over one holiday mix-up?" I could hear my father in the background asking what was wrong. "It wasn't just one holiday," I said quietly. "But you're right about one thing. It was a long time ago. I'll see you tonight at dinner." I ended the call and leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath. Madeline found me there a moment later, concern written on her face. "Everything okay?" I straightened up, adjusting my blazer. "It will be. What's next on the agenda?" The day passed in a blur of meetings and preparations. I kept busy focusing on work rather than dwelling on the evening ahead. At 5, I retreated to my penthouse to change for dinner, selecting a simple but elegant black dress that projected confidence. James arrived as I was finishing my makeup. "You don't have to face them alone," he said, kissing my cheek. "I know, but I'm glad you're here." The Maple Room had been transformed for the intimate dinner, a single table for 12 decorated with winter greenery and white candles. I arrived early to ensure everything was perfect, a habit I couldn't break even for a family dinner. The Livingstons arrived first, punctual, gracious, clearly impressed with the setting. Senator Livingston approached me with new respect in his eyes. "Miss Prescott, Ariana, I want to apologize for my assumptions yesterday. Your brother mentioned you were successful in hospitality, but I had no idea of the extent. This is quite an empire you've built." "Thank you, Senator. And please, no apologies necessary. Sophia joined us, genuine warmth in her expression. Jackson has been telling me more about your journey. It's truly inspiring. I was saved from responding by the arrival of my parents and brother. An awkward moment followed as everyone found their seats. Formal introductions, polite small talk, the careful navigation of a family dynamic dramatically altered overnight. Throughout the elaborate 5-course meal, I watched my parents perform a careful dance, alternating between trying to share in my success and attempting to explain away their previous dismissal of it. Ariana always had such drive, my father told the table during the main course. Even as a little girl, she was organizing lemonade stands. We knew she was destined for business. I caught Jackson's eye across the table. He gave me a subtle eye roll that made me stifle a smile. At least one of us remembered the truth. And naming the hotel chain Prescott, "What a lovely tribute to your family," Mrs. Livingston commented. Actually, I said quietly, I named it after myself. The family connection was incidental. My mother jumped in quickly. But we've always been so proud to see our name on such beautiful properties. When Ariana sent us those magazine articles, we showed everyone we knew. Articles they'd apparently never bothered to read. I took a sip of wine instead of responding. As dessert was served, a spectacular bûche de Noël that Chef Antoine had personally prepared, Senator Livingston raised his glass. To family, he proposed, and to new beginnings. The toast felt pointed, an elegant acknowledgement of the tension at the table. I raised my glass with the others, making eye contact with each person there. When I reached my parents, I saw something unexpected in their expressions. Not just embarrassment or revisionist pride, but perhaps a glimmer of genuine regret. After dinner, as everyone prepared to depart, my mother pulled me aside. "The dinner was lovely, Ariana. Everything has been perfect." She hesitated, then added, "I don't think I realized until yesterday the scope of what you've accomplished." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was something. "Thank you," I said simply. "Your father and I, we may not have always understood your choices, but seeing all this," she gestured around the elegant room, "you've created something remarkable." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Perhaps, she continued carefully, "we could have breakfast tomorrow, just the two of us." I considered the offer. I'd like that, I found myself saying, surprising us both. Later that night, alone in my penthouse, I called James, who had gracefully excused himself after dinner to give me space with my family. "How did it go?" he asked. I curled up on my sofa looking out at the city lights. Complicated. They're trying to rewrite history while simultaneously acknowledging the present. It's a process. "Are you okay?" I considered the question seriously. I think I am. For years I've defined myself partly by their lack of recognition. Now that it's here, I'm realizing it doesn't change who I am or what I've built. That's wisdom, Ari. Maybe, I sighed. Or maybe it's just exhaustion. Mom wants to have breakfast tomorrow. Are you going? Yes, I think I need to let go of the past if I'm going to move forward. Not forget it, not excuse it, but stop letting it define me. That sounds like a healthy perspective. As we talked, I felt a shift within myself. Not the vindication I'd imagined all these years, but something more valuable, the liberation of no longer needing their approval. I had built my life, my success, my family of choice. Their recognition, while satisfying, wasn't necessary for my happiness anymore. The revelation felt like setting down a heavy suitcase I'd been carrying for years. A lightness, a freedom to move forward unencumbered by old wounds. Not healed completely perhaps, but no longer defined by the pain. Christmas morning dawned clear and crisp, the kind of winter day that makes Manhattan magical, sunlight glinting off snow-dusted buildings, holiday decorations twinkling everywhere. I woke early, a lifetime habit from the hotel business, and watched the sunrise from my terrace with a cup of coffee, reflecting on the strange journey of the past few days. The breakfast with my mother the previous day had been surprisingly genuine. For perhaps the first time, she'd asked real questions about my career path, listening without interrupting as I described the challenges and triumphs of building Prescott Hotels. She didn't apologize outright for the years of dismissal, but she acknowledged them in her own way. I think we didn't know how to handle a daughter who dreamed bigger than we could imagine, she'd admitted. It was easier to focus on Jackson's conventional path than to understand your vision. It wasn't everything I'd wanted to hear, but it was honest. A foundation we might be able to build upon. A gentle knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Opening it, I found Jackson standing there looking slightly uncertain, holding a small wrapped package. "Merry Christmas," he said. "I hope it's not too early." "Not at all. Come in." I gestured him inside, curious about this unexpected visit. Jackson whistled softly as he entered the penthouse. "So this is how hotel royalty lives. Not bad, sis." I smiled, despite myself. "Coffee, please." As I poured him a cup, Jackson walked around the living room, examining the photographs and mementos I'd collected. Images of hotel openings, awards, ceremonies, travels to scout new locations. "I always followed your career, you know," he said, studying a photo of me cutting the ribbon at our Tokyo property, kept a file of articles about you. "Sophia teases me about it, says I have a sister shrine." This surprised me. "You never reached out." Jackson accepted the coffee cup, looking uncomfortable. "I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. I was part of the problem even if I didn't mean to be. The golden child and all that." "You were a kid too, Jackson. It wasn't your fault our parents played favorites." He nodded, then handed me the small package. "This is probably silly, but I've carried it around for years, waiting for the right moment." Curious, I unwrapped it to find a faded paper star slightly crushed at one corner. A Christmas tree ornament I'd made in 4th grade art class. I remembered it immediately. The pride I'd felt creating it, the care I'd taken with the glitter and paint. "Where did you get this?" I asked, turning it over in my hands. "Mom was going to throw it out when they downsized 5 years ago. I kept it, thought maybe someday." He shrugged. "Anyway, I thought you might want it back." The simple gesture touched me more deeply than any apology could have. This small paper star represented a connection to my childhood, a recognition of my place in the family that had been so often denied. "Thank you," I said softly. "This means a lot." We sat in companionable silence for a moment, sipping our coffee before Jackson spoke again. "I was always proud of you, Ari. Even when we were kids. You were so smart, so determined. I knew you'd do amazing things." "You never said anything." "I was a teenage boy," he said with a rueful smile. "Not exactly known for emotional intelligence. By the time I was old enough to understand, there was already this distance between us." I studied my brother's face, seeing sincerity there that helped heal a small corner of my heart. "It's not too late, you know," I said, "to be siblings who actually know each other." "I'd like that," Jackson replied. "Sophia would too. She's been pestering me to reconnect with you since we got engaged. Says she wants our kids to know their brilliant aunt." The mention of future nieces and nephews made me smile. I'd like that too. We talked for another hour, really talked perhaps for the first time as adults, about his work in finance, his relationship with Sophia, his own struggles with our parents' expectations, about my journey building Prescott Hotels, my relationship with James, my life in New York and the other cities where we had properties. When he left to prepare for the afternoon wedding ceremony, I felt a genuine connection that had been missing for decades. Not everything was resolved with our parents, but this bridge to my brother felt like an unexpected Christmas gift. The wedding itself was elegant and surprisingly moving. Watching Jackson and Sophia exchange vows in the hotel's grand ballroom, transformed now into a winter wonderland of white flowers and crystal decorations, I found myself unexpectedly emotional. James squeezed my hand, understanding without words. During the reception, my father approached me at the moment when I was alone, James having gone to get drinks. "Your mother told me about your conversation yesterday," he began awkwardly. "I want you to know, well, I'm sorry, Ariana, for not seeing you, for not believing in you the way a father should. The directness of his apology caught me off guard. My father had always been a proud man, rarely admitting when he was wrong. Thank you for saying that, I said carefully. This empire you've built, it's extraordinary. I was too stuck in my small-town mentality to understand what you were trying to achieve. He looked around the magnificent room. I couldn't see beyond my own limited experience to imagine what you could become. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of years of misunderstanding between us. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued, just a chance perhaps to get to know the remarkable woman you've become. I thought about the years of hurt, the exclusion, the dismissal. But I also thought about the freedom I'd felt yesterday, the liberation of no longer needing their approval. That freedom gave me the space to consider reconciliation on my own terms. I'd like that, I said finally. It won't happen overnight, but I'm willing to try if you are. Dad nodded, emotion making him uncharacteristically silent. After a moment, he simply extended his hand. I took it, the handshake, feeling like both an ending and a beginning. Later, during the reception dinner, I found myself seated next to my grandmother, my father's mother, a sharp-eyed woman in her 80s who had always had a soft spot for me. I always knew you'd outshine them all, she said, without preamble, patting my hand. Even when you were little, you had that spark, that determination. You never told me that, I said, surprised. Didn't need to. You knew your own worth even when no one else did. That's rare, Ariana. Most people spend their lives looking for external validation, never finding their internal compass. She nodded toward my parents dancing awkwardly on the far side of the room. They couldn't see your light because it outshone their expectations. That wasn't your fault. Her words crystallized something I'd been feeling since the confrontation, that my worth had never been dependent on their recognition. I had built my success not to prove them wrong, but because it was my passion, my calling, my dream. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the terrace outside the ballroom, taking a moment alone amid the celebrations. The New York skyline glittered around me, holiday lights making the city especially magical. James joined me, draping his jacket over my shoulders against the winter chill. "Penny, for your thoughts," he said, wrapping an arm around my waist. "I'm thinking about rooms," I replied. "How all my life I've been fighting for space, in my family, in the business world, in my own story. And now I realize I've built not just rooms but entire buildings dedicated to welcoming people, to making them feel they belong." James smiled. Poetic justice. "Something like that." I leaned into his warmth. "I think I'm ready to stop defining myself by their rejection, to create new traditions, new memories. Starting now, I agreed. Next Christmas, let's be somewhere completely different. Maybe the Maldives property or Tokyo. Somewhere without the weight of old expectations." "I'd go anywhere with you," James said simply. "But what about your family, this newfound reconciliation?" I considered the question seriously. They'll always be my family, but on my terms now, not theirs. I can maintain a relationship with them without letting old patterns define me. I can forgive without forgetting my worth. Inside, the reception continued. My brother's wedding in my hotel, surrounded by a family I was seeing clearly, perhaps for the first time. Not with the wounded eyes of a rejected daughter, but with the clarity of a woman who had built her own path, her own success, her own definition of home. The greatest freedom, I realized, wasn't in making my parents finally see my worth. It was in no longer needing them to see it, to know it myself. As James and I returned to the celebration, I carried this understanding like a private gift. The true luxury I had created wasn't the hotel empire with my name on it, but the ability to write my own story, define my own success, and create rooms in my life filled only with those who truly valued my presence. Have you ever had to redefine your relationship with family members who didn't believe in you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if this journey of standing up for your worth resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of overcoming family challenges. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful rooms are the ones we build ourselves. Share this video if you know someone who needs to hear that message today.